Hey everybody, I'm here to finally show you how to make a magnolia flower out of oyster shells. I'm certainly not a professional, but this is just my way to do it. So you can do on any kind of canvas or any kind of surface you want. I use an 8x8 canvas for this. You can make a smaller one with a 4x4 canvas or even a wood round. I'm gonna do one of these eventually. And then I've already picked out my shells and painted them and resined them so they're all set to go. And I gold the edges, but that's thoroughly up to you. All right, so it takes about 6 oyster shells for the base. And I've picked out some, and usually what I'll do is arrange them first. You know, because you want to have it sitting somewhat equal on all sides. Now I know right now they don't sit, but I'll show you what I do. All right, so that's about what I want to do. Maybe bring this up a little bit. That looks good. So I'm going to start there. And I use a combination of hot glue and resin. So I'm just going to hot glue my first flower on, the first oyster shell, and I'll lay it about there. And then what I do is I take another shell and then I'll prop it up underneath it. The hot glue is just a temporary measure to hold the shells in place. So I'm gonna leave that like that. And then I'm gonna take my next one, just put some at the base of it. And this is Gorilla hot glue. And I'm gonna try to get as close to the other one as I can and about the same level. It just makes it easier for putting things together. And then I take another small shell and I'm reaching off to find something and I'll put it underneath to help hold that up. Because you want them, I want them a little off the canvas, excuse me. All right, and so the next one, I'm gonna put right about there. And you can't get them all exactly even, but you try to do your best to get which ones you can't even. Like I said, a little bit off of the canvas. I think it just looks better. All right, so let's see here. And it doesn't matter, it won't show. And see, this one is naturally gonna be a little bit higher than the one before it, but that'll be okay. I'm gonna prop that one in place just for a minute. And this will be my, see, and sometimes once you start doing these, you realize that you're too far in, so you have to come back a little bit to fit all 6 oyster shells in there. All right, that should be good. All right, let's do the 5th one. That's gonna go right about there. Prop that one up. See, this is gonna naturally sit a little bit higher than the other one, but that'll be okay. And our last one. I try to use bigger shells for the base, and I graduate up smaller as we go along. And this is gonna be like 3 rows of shells. More glue. These are Gorilla hot glue sticks. I like these the best. So see how they're gonna be nice and taut and they're together. That's important because it helps to build strength as you go along. And probably as I, see that one's pretty well staying now, so I'm gonna use that one over here. All right, so that's your first layer. So now what I wanna do is there's a few different ways you can do it. I wanna put some E6000 to sort of hang these together. Originally I used to use UV resin and just put a dot in between those. It helps to hold them all together, so it helps the structure of the whole flower. But because I sell these, I'm using a construction adhesive. My husband's gonna come over here to the side a little bit so I can sort of have him help me apply it, and I can show you what I mean. He's moving me up a little bit. I guess I'm not showing fully in the camera. All right, so that's the base. So now these are just temporary while the hot glue dries, and I'm gonna have him apply a little bit of construction adhesive, which is also Gorilla Glue, by the way. If you wanna see it, he's gonna put it in camera. There you go. He's gonna put some right here for me. And this won't show, so it's not a huge deal. And he's gonna go around in between all cracks. And you know, you can be liberal with it because quite frankly, none of this is gonna be seen. And it just really helps to hold the flower up. We're having technical difficulties with this caulking gun. I think that's what you call it, caulking gun. And then let me show you just as an example what I would do with the UV resin if I was gonna use that. So see right here, these two meet right here. I just put a thin ribbon of that right there and hit it with some light. So you certainly don't have to use the construction adhesive. I just do it, like I said, because I put these through the mail and they really have to be very durable. Or you could use E6000 if you wanted to too. Okay, he's back with the construction adhesive. And he's gonna put some right here. And then right here, over here. And he's gonna go all the way around with that. Because the Gorilla Glue, hot glue, is just really not quite enough. And then right here when he gets it, and he's gonna do some over here. And I'll show you one more time with the UV resin too. See where these two meet right here? This is a good spot just to lay some stuff on there because it helps hold them together. And you can mix your types of adhesives. I feel sure that my hot glue and Gorilla Glue intertwines with my UV resin and my construction adhesive or my E6000. Okay, he's back. And then he's gonna put a ribbon right here. And I'm gonna take a gloved hand. I'm just gonna smush it around a little bit because I don't want this stuff on my hands. And remember, like I said, none of this is gonna show, so it's not a big deal. And I want him to put a little bit right here for me, and hopefully he can get the caulking gun working sufficiently that we can finish this. Right there, that's good. And then some right here. Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm happy with that. All right, let me take this glove off. So that's the first layer. Some of these I might leave in for a while. See, now most of these are gonna be right where I want them. This one's a little wonky still. So I am gonna have him come back with a little more construction adhesive right here. And he's gonna put a big dollop on it for me. Oh, maybe not quite that big, but I can fix that. These things are pretty forgiving when it comes to the interiors because nobody's gonna see any of this. Now that, well, that'll certainly hold, won't it? All right. And so I can probably take some of these out too. See, this one's a little wonky too here. So I'm gonna have him put a little bit more right here, try to get down to the canvas on that. Just helps to adhere the shell to the canvas when it dries fully. All right, that's good. Quite frankly, it looks much neater with UV resin, but like I said, I like something a little more strong to help adhere. So, okay, so your first layer is done. So now you're gonna want somewhat smaller shells, and it's not gonna be perfect to go across the top. And here's an open area, you know what I mean? Like a between two shells, I like to make sure that that seam, I go like this with the shell so it's sort of going off the seam in between it. Just looks nicer than piling them all like this. And so it depends how many shells I do. Sometimes I'll do 4, sometimes I'll do 5. It really depends on how big the shells are. So like I'll probably do one here and here, and I'll leave those there for a minute. And then I'll probably do something here and here. So maybe I'll do 4 this time. It really depends on the size and shape of your shells. So I'm gonna start here. More glue. I'm gonna move this for a minute. And I'm gonna start here. And I do want those to sit up a little bit from the last ones. And remember, these are still a little wobbly. And I'm gonna shove a little shell underneath there to try to hold it in place for just a minute. And flat back shells are much easier than ones that are very pointy, but it's not always possible, so you do the best you can with what you have. All right, now I'm gonna find another shell, and I'm probably gonna do this one next. That's a nice shell. And the same process. I try to hold that up a little bit. With another shell. Okay. And then let's do another one. Okay, you hold that in place for a minute, shove a shell behind it to sort of hold it up while that Gorilla Glue sort of dries. All right, we got one more. I think this should fit. Yep, there we go. And it really depends on the size of the shells going around as to how many you can fit around. Sometimes I do 6 on the bottom, sometimes 5 in the next row, and 4 or 3. So you sort of have to let the shells dictate where you put them. Okay, just for time's sake, I am going to use some UV resin because the construction gun is not working too well. So just a dot between those two seams there, and I'm gonna hit it with some light. Really helps to hold the shells together. And remember, if it's still sticky, the UV resin is not completely cured. It shouldn't be. I put a very small amount on, so it shouldn't be a big deal, and it shouldn't take long to set, though. And I know I should have a glove on, but I do not. And see, these two don't really touch here, so there's not much I can do about that. I am going to put a little more right here. All right, and so I think I can start pulling some of these out now. And let's see where we are. And I got one more over here. And sometimes they'll actually get stuck under there, so you have to kind of be careful not to shove them under there too hard. So now this is still a little wonky over here, but that construction adhesive should help that dry overnight. All right, so that's layer 2. So now I have 1 layer left. Now I'm not real crazy about the shells I have left, quite frankly, but we're gonna make it work. Look at this beautiful shell. I tend to like the ones with the little curlies, especially for making flowers. These shells are harder to come by though, for sure. And I could have actually done a 5th one in here, but I'm okay with the 4, so we're gonna leave that alone. And so I have 3 shells, 3 shells left for the top. So I'm gonna sort of see what they do here. I'll probably put 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there. And the top one doesn't have to necessarily be touching all 3 sides. I don't think I could fit a 4th small one in there. All right, so I got some glue. Remember to go in between the seams. Just looks prettier that way. I'm gonna hold that for a second and put a shell back there to try to keep it in spot. That wants to lean on me a little bit, so we're gonna have to hold that for a second. Once I get the other shell in, it might help hold it up too. I'm gonna hold these for a second. Let me put another shell back there. Now remember, I only have 1 more, so I don't want to push these all together because then I'm in a big space here. And then I'm going to put 1 more right here. Yeah, that should look good. Every flower is going to look a little bit different. And that's okay. Who wants everything to look the same anyway? Okay. So we now have 3 layers. I'm gonna lay some UV resin on there. And I'm gonna lay it all through this bottom right here, just a little amount at a time, because like I said, you want it to be able to dry. And you wanna get it to harden pretty quick. I'm gonna do a little bit right here. And I'm gonna do a little bit right here. And I always check them the next day. And most often they're always firm. The leaves don't move. But once in a while you have to go back and you have to adjust something. All right, let's see where we are now. Let me shut my light off and not burn myself with the glue gun. Okay. So this really isn't even helping, so we'll take that out. Now this one was a little wobbly, so let's see what we get with this one. Good, right? I think so. So now, there you go. So like if you start to push on these, that's a little loose still. The glue will help that. The rest of these are pretty good shape. This one, this one, this one, and these are, I just set. So now I just want to show you what I would do. I have leaves. Now I happen to cut these leaves down to size, and then I just sort of put 2 in. Because remember, if you look from the side here, and I don't know if you can see very well, there's a little bit of space here. But you want your leaves to sort of sit up. You don't want them laying straight on the canvas or any surface that you put them on. I just think it looks more like a flower if they sort of cup up. I'm going to put this back down. So I normally put 2 leaves and I cut them down if I need to. Say maybe here and here, and I'll cut them down. They won't be this long when I'm done. I'll have them stick off the side of the frame about maybe this much. That's really an aesthetic. You can do whatever you want. And then I take this moss, which is very messy, by the way. My husband, AKA the photographer, is adjusting the camera, so God only knows if you can see me at this point. I take this moss and Usually for balance sake, I'll put like leaves on one side and maybe the moss on the platform on the other. And then I take and put some moss in here just because I think it looks better. And then I'll either put a gold spray painted pine cone or I'll put a faux pearl. And there you have it. Let it dry. And then make sure you check your shells to make sure they feel firm, which most already do. But like I said, that construction adhesive on that base layer is still gonna dry overnight, so it will only get stronger. And this is just a shell that was painted white, and then I put a pearl paint over the top of it, and then I resined it with some gold trim. And I have decoupaged these shells before. I do a blue and white Delft pattern, which looks really nice. So from here, it's just all a matter of how you want to create the rest of it. All right, if you have any questions, you can certainly message me on decoupage shells and crafting or send me a private message. Thanks. I hope this video wasn't too horrible.